Maya Chen's fingers danced through the soil with practiced precision, each movement a testament to years of careful study. At 17, she was the youngest quantum botanist's apprentice in what remained of Earth's natural agriculture program. Though these days, that wasn't saying much. The garden she tended was one of the last of its kind, a precious half-acre of actual growing things in a world dominated by synthetic nutrition factories and artificial sustenance. The morning sun painted shadows through the geodesic dome that protected her plants from the harsh outside atmosphere. Maya paused in her work, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face with the back of her hand, leaving a smudge of dirt across her cheek. The tomato plants were coming along nicely, their fruits swelling with promise. Real tomatoes, not the molecularly assembled approximations that most people consumed. A soft chime from her monitoring system broke the peaceful morning quiet. Maya frowned. The atmospheric sensors weren't scheduled for recalibration until next week. She straightened up, her knees creaking slightly from hours of crouching among the plant beds. The chime wasn't coming from her equipment at all. It was coming from above. The dome's transparent panels suddenly darkened, an automatic response to what the sensors must have interpreted as a severe light anomaly. Maya's heart began to race as she saw what was causing it. A massive ship, unlike anything in Earth's fleet, hovering directly overhead. Its hull seemed to ripple like liquid metal, defying the usual laws of physics and engineering. "Miss Chen." The voice materialized from nowhere, speaking perfect standard English with an unsettling harmonic undertone. "We have come for the secrets of quantum cultivation." Maya blinked, her hand instinctively moving to touch the worn leather notebook in her pocket, her master's final gift before passing, containing generations of botanical wisdom. "I'm sorry," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "but this is a restricted agricultural research facility. If you'd like to arrange a visit, you'll need to contact the Global Resource Administration." "We are the Vexari," the voice interrupted, its harmonics shifting to something almost like amusement. "We have already spoken with your global authorities. They directed us here, to what they claimed was Earth's most advanced quantum manipulation facility." Maya's confusion deepened. "This is a garden," she said simply. "We grow food here. Real food, the way it's been grown for thousands of years." There was a long pause. The ship's hull rippled more intensely. "You attempt deception," the voice said finally. "Our scans detect energy patterns consistent with matter manipulation at the quantum level. The complexity of these patterns exceeds anything in our databases." Maya looked around at her garden, at the neat rows of vegetables, the carefully maintained soil composition, the heritage seed bank she'd helped catalog. Then it hit her. They were scanning the plants themselves, the miraculous quantum dance of photosynthesis, the complex molecular machinery of natural growth. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," she began, but before she could continue, a beam of light materialized in the center of the garden path. It coalesced into a figure that made Maya take an involuntary step backward. The Vexari representative stood nearly 8 feet tall, its body a shifting lattice of what looked like living crystal and light. Multiple limbs, Maya couldn't quite count how many, moved with liquid grace as it oriented itself. Where a head should be, there was an array of geometric shapes that constantly rearranged themselves. "Show us," the being said, its physical form producing the harmonics she'd heard in the voice. "Show us how you manipulate matter at its most fundamental level. Show us how you create sustenance without molecular assemblers." Maya felt a laugh bubbling up inside her, not of humor, but of sheer absurdity. These incredibly advanced beings, capable of faster-than-light travel, and who knew what else, were amazed by something as simple as a tomato plant. "I'll show you," she said, making a decision. "But first, you need to understand something. What we do here isn't about manipulation or control. It's about partnership, about understanding and working with the natural processes that make life possible." The geometric patterns of the Vexari's head spun rapidly. Partnership with non-sentient matter. Maya knelt down beside one of her tomato plants, gesturing for the alien to join her. To her surprise, it folded its crystalline form down to her level, multiple limbs arranging themselves in what seemed like an attempt to mirror her posture. "Look at this plant," she said, gently touching one of the leaves. "Really look at it. Every cell is a quantum engine, converting sunlight into chemical energy. Every molecule of chlorophyll is performing calculations more complex than any computer. But we didn't design this system. We didn't build it. We learned to work with it." The Vexeri's form shifted colors, from crystalline, clear to a deep, thoughtful blue. One of its limbs extended, hovering near the plant but not touching it. "Our scans indicate chaos, randomness, and yet patterns, impossible patterns. Life itself," Maya said softly. "The original quantum computer. All we do here is provide the right conditions, maintain the balance. The real work," she smiled, "that's all of them. Billions of years of evolution perfecting what no scientist could design." The being was silent for a long moment, its form cycling through colors Maya had no names for. When it spoke again, the harmonics had changed to something almost like wonder. "You are saying you do not control this process." "Control?" Maya shook her head. "We can influence it, support it, learn from it. But control, that's not how life works. That's not how any of this works." The geometric patterns of the Vexeri's head collapsed into a single point, then exploded outward in a dazzling display. This is not what we expected. Our civilization has spent millennia perfecting molecular assembly, achieving total control over matter itself. And you cultivate chaos." Maya stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "We cultivate life. There's a difference." She pulled the leather notebook from her pocket. "My master spent her whole life studying these patterns, documenting the dance between order and chaos that makes everything you see here possible. Would you like to learn?" The Vexeri's form stabilized, settling into a soft golden glow. "You would teach us. That's what this garden is for," Maya said. "Not just growing food, growing understanding, knowledge, wonder." She opened the notebook to its first page, where her master had written in careful script, "To garden is to believe in tomorrow. Your global authorities," the Vexeri said slowly, "they called this your most advanced facility. We assumed." "They weren't wrong," Maya interrupted gently. "This is the most advanced facility on Earth. Not because of any technology we've created, but because of what we've preserved, what we remember." She gestured at the rows of growing things around them. "This is the most sophisticated collection of quantum machinery ever assembled. We just can't take credit for designing it." The being's form rippled again, and Maya could have sworn she saw something like embarrassment in its shifting patterns. Above them, the massive ship had stopped its threatening hover and now seemed to float almost curiously. "Perhaps," the Vexeri said, harmonics softer now. "We have much to learn from your chaos." Maya smiled, turning to the first lesson in her notebook. "Then let's start at the beginning, with a single seed and the miracle hidden inside it." In the dome's filtered sunlight, alien and human bent together over the ancient wisdom of growing things, while overhead, the most advanced ship in the galaxy settled in to learn about the quantum mechanics of a tomato plant. 3 days after the Vexeri's arrival, Maya found herself trying to explain photosynthesis to a being that could manipulate matter at the atomic level, and somehow it wasn't going well. But why not simply program the molecular assemblies to produce the desired nutritional output? The Vexeri scientist, who had eventually introduced itself as ANX-427, or ANX for short, hovered near a row of spinach plants, its crystalline form shifting between shades of frustrated purple and confused green. Maya suppressed a sigh. She'd been through this explanation several times now, each attempt seeming to confuse the alien more. Because that's not how natural systems work. The plant isn't a machine you program. It's a living thing that grows through a complex interaction of sunlight, water, nutrients, and its own genetic coding. Anx's geometric head patterns spun rapidly. A gesture Maya had learned indicated deep thought or processing. But surely you have optimized these interactions, eliminated unnecessary variables, established control parameters. That's exactly what we try not to do, Maya explained, kneeling down to check the soil moisture. The complexity of these natural systems is what makes them resilient. The unnecessary variables, as you call them, they're what allow the plants to adapt, to survive unexpected changes. Above them, through the dome's transparent panels, the Vexeri ship maintained its constant vigil. Maya had learned that it contained an entire research team, all equally baffled by Earth's primitive, yet inexplicably effective cultivation methods. Several more Vexeri had materialized in her garden over the past days, each one more confused than the last. "Observe," Maya said, gesturing to a nearby tomato plant. "This single plant is performing quintillions of quantum calculations every second, adjusting its growth patterns based on light levels, temperature, soil chemistry, even communicating with other plants through mycorrhizal networks in the soil." Anx extended one of its limbs, sensors Maya couldn't begin to understand scanning the plant. The chaos patterns, they are not random. Far from it. Maya pulled out her master's notebook, flipping to a page filled with careful diagrams. Every aspect of this garden is interconnected. The bacteria in the soil, the fungal networks, the insects that pollinate the flowers. It's all part of a system that evolved over millions of years. But Anx's form flickered with uncertainty. On our world, we eliminated such inefficiencies centuries ago. All nutrition is produced through precisely controlled molecular assembly. No variables. No waste. No chaos. Something in Anx's tone made Maya look up sharply. "How's that working out for you?" The Vexeri's crystalline form dulled slightly, its usual shimmer fading. "Our systems are failing. The molecular patterns degrade faster than we can correct them. Each generation of assembled nutrition provides less sustenance than the last. We believe your quantum cultivation must hold the answer." Maya sat back on her heels, realization dawning. "That's why you came here. Your artificial food systems are breaking down." Yes, Anx's admission carried harmonics of what might have been shame. "We believed we had achieved perfection through control. But now," the being's form rippled with distress, "our children cannot process our assembled nutrition. They weaken with each passing cycle. We detected your garden's quantum signatures from light years away. They seemed impossible, too complex to be natural. We thought surely you must possess technology far beyond our own." Maya stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "Come with me," she said, leading Anx to her seed storage unit. She typed in the access code, and the temperature-controlled door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, thousands of carefully labeled containers held humanity's botanical heritage. "This," she said, selecting a small vial, "is what you're looking for. But it's not technology. At least, not in the way you think." She tipped a single tomato seed into her palm. Anx leaned close, multiple scanning limbs extending toward the tiny seed. "Our sensors detect potential. Layers of coding more complex than our most advanced quantum computers. But dormant. Until it's planted," Maya said. "Until it's given the right conditions to grow." She smiled. "Would you like to try?" The Vexeri's form shifted rapidly through several colors before settling on a gentle gold. "You would share this with us. After we came here demanding your secrets. That's the thing about gardens," Maya said, leading Anx to an empty planting bed. "They grow better when knowledge is shared, when understanding is cultivated alongside the plants." She knelt down, using her finger to make a small depression in the soil. "But surely there are protocols." Anx's voice carried harmonics of confusion. "Security measures, proprietary techniques." Maya laughed softly. "The only security nature needs is complexity. The only protocol is patience." She placed the seed in the soil, covering it gently. Here's your first lesson in quantum cultivation. Sometimes the most powerful things come from simply letting go of control. Anx's geometric patterns arranged themselves into what Maya was beginning to recognize as their equivalent of a thoughtful frown. This seems inefficient. Life usually is, Maya agreed. But life also finds ways to survive that we could never engineer. That's what your civilization forgot, isn't it? In pursuing perfect control, you lost touch with the chaos that makes life possible. The Vexeri was silent for a long moment, its form shifting through subtle variations of blue and gold. Finally, it extended a limb and, with surprising delicacy, touched the soil where the seed was buried. How long? Anx asked. Until what? Until we see results. Until we can verify the quantum processes are functioning correctly. Maya smiled. That's lesson 2. You can't rush growth. The seed will sprout when it's ready. Usually about a week for tomatoes, but every seed is different. Every plant follows its own timeline. A week. Anx's form flickered with what might have been alarm. But our children need time too, Maya said gently. Just like this seed. But while we wait, she gestured at the rest of the garden. There's so much more to learn. Your people mastered the manipulation of matter, but somewhere along the way, you forgot how to work with it, how to listen to it. Shall we begin? Overhead, the Vexeri ship's hull rippled with new patterns, as if reflecting its occupants' shifting understanding. In the soil, a single seed began its ancient dance of transformation, unaware that it carried the hopes of 2 civilizations within its tiny shell. The crisis came exactly 6 days after planting the first tomato seed. Maya was checking the soil moisture levels when 3 new Vexeri materialized in her garden, their crystalline forms pulsing with angry reds and harsh oranges. Unlike Anx's now familiar flowing movements, these beings moved with sharp, aggressive precision. This facility is to be automated immediately, announced the tallest of the 3, its voice carrying harmonics that made Maya's teeth ache. Your presence is no longer required. Maya straightened slowly, feeling Anx shift nervously beside her. Over the past days, the scientist had become an eager student, gradually beginning to understand the delicate balance of natural systems. But these new arrivals were different. Automation would kill everything in this garden, Maya said firmly. Living things need living caretakers. Nonsense. The lead Vexeri's form crystallized into sharp edges. Our scans have fully mapped the quantum processes occurring here. We will replicate them under controlled conditions. Anx moved forward, its usually smooth form showing signs of distress. Administrator Van 924, please. The systems here are more complex than we understood. The human Maya has been teaching. Van 924's form flashed brilliant red. We did not cross light years to be taught by primitives. Our children starve while you indulge in gardening lessons. Maya felt her patience, carefully maintained through days of explaining basic biology to confused aliens, finally snap. Your children starve because your civilization forgot how to work with life itself. You think you can just copy and paste natural processes like computer code. Fine. Try it. See what happens. The administrator's geometric patterns contracted to deadly points. You dare. I dare because I'm right. Maya interrupted. You want proof. Look at your scans again. Look at the quantum signatures of these plants. Really look at them. What do you see? There was a tense moment of silence as Van 924's sensors extended, scanning the garden. Its form shifted slightly, confusion entering its angry patterns. The signatures, they're changing. Every second of every day, Maya said. That's what life does. It adapts. It responds. It grows. You can't automate that any more than you can automate evolution itself. Then we will take samples, declared one of Van 924's companions, extending a limb toward the nearest plant bed. Reverse engineer the basic patterns. Touch those plants, and you'll destroy exactly what you came here to understand. Maya snapped, stepping between the Vexari and her garden. You want to save your children. Then, for once in your species' history, stop trying to control everything and learn to listen. The garden fell silent. Even the gentle hum of the Vexari ship overhead seemed to quiet. Va-924's form had frozen in what might have been shock, or might have been rage. Maya couldn't tell the difference yet in their alien expressions. X finally broke the tension. Administrator, if I may, there is something you need to see. The scientist led them to the bed where, 6 days ago, Maya had planted that first tomato seed. There, breaking through the soil, was a tiny green shoot. Impossible, breathed one of Va-924's companions. The quantum complexity from such primitive conditions. Life, Maya said quietly, kneeling beside the sprout. Finding its way, like it always does. No automation, no control, just the right conditions and patience. Va-924's form shifted through several colors before settling into something less aggressive. Explain. Look closely, Maya said, gesturing to the soil around the sprout. See how the bacteria in the soil are already forming relationships with the root system, how fungal networks are reaching out to connect it to the wider garden. Every moment, quintillions of quantum interactions are happening here, each one slightly different, each one responding to conditions we can barely measure, let alone control. The administrator's geometric patterns spun rapidly, but without control. Without control, you have adaptation, Maya finished. You have resilience. You have life that can survive changes you never predicted. She stood, facing the Vexari delegation. Your children are starving because you removed all the chaos from their food. You took out everything that made it alive, that made it adaptable. You made it perfect, and in doing so, made it dead. Va-924's form rippled with what might have been distress. The Council, they demand immediate results. Reproducible processes, controlled outcomes. Then tell them this, Maya said, pulling out her master's notebook. Tell them that the secret they're looking for isn't about control. It's about partnership, about working with life instead of trying to master it. She opened the book to a page filled with careful observations of natural growth patterns. We can teach you, but you have to be willing to learn things that might challenge everything you think you know about progress. The administrator was silent for a long moment, its form shifting through subtle variations of blue and gold. Colors Maya had learned indicated deep thought among the Vexari. Finally, it spoke. How long? How long to implement these partnerships across our worlds? Maya looked at the tiny tomato sprout, so small yet so complex, so fragile yet so resilient. To restart your world's natural systems. Years. Maybe decades, but to save your children. She smiled slightly. That can start today, if you're willing to get your hands dirty. Va-924's geometric patterns rearranged themselves into something new, something that seemed almost humble. Show us. And so, as Earth's sun began to set, casting long shadows through the geodesic dome, Maya found herself teaching a group of advanced alien beings how to plant seeds in dirt. Above them, the Vexari ship's hull rippled with new patterns, as if the entire vessel was learning along with its crew that sometimes the most sophisticated answer was also the simplest, and that wisdom could grow from the humblest of beginnings. 2 weeks after the confrontation with Va-924, Maya's garden had become something unprecedented in human history, an interstellar agricultural school. Vexari of various ranks and specialties materialized daily, their crystalline forms casting rainbow refractions across the plants as they learned the basics of what their civilization had forgotten. Today, Maya was teaching a group of Vexari nutritional scientists about soil composition. She knelt in the dirt, surrounded by beings who could manipulate matter at the quantum level, teaching them about the importance of worms. Each worm processes organic material, creating tunnels that allow water and air to reach plant roots. She explained, carefully lifting a nightcrawler for them to observe. They're like tiny engineers, constantly rebuilding and enriching the soil ecosystem. The Vexari scientists' forms shifted with various colors of fascination and disbelief. One of them, designated ULT 789, extended a scanning limb toward the worm. The quantum signatures, they are connected to everything else. ULT 789's geometric patterns spun with excitement. The soil, the roots, the microbial colonies. Maya nodded, gently returning the worm to its work. Everything here is connected. That's what your civilization missed in trying to isolate and control every variable. Natural systems work because of their connections, not despite them. Annex, who had become something of a liaison between Maya and the Vexari, shifted closer. We're detecting similar principles in our preliminary trials, the scientist reported. The test gardens we've established on our ship show higher quantum coherence when multiple species are present, even at the microscopic level. Maya smiled, remembering the day she'd helped the Vexari set up their first experimental gardens and specially adapted chambers aboard their ship. They'd insisted on maintaining their own atmospheric conditions, unable to quite trust Earth's chaotic air, but they'd followed her instructions about soil composition exactly. "How are the tomato plants doing?" she asked, standing and brushing dirt from her knees. Anx's form brightened. The sprouting rate exceeded our most optimistic projections. Though, the scientist's patterns shifted to something Maya had learned to read as embarrassment. We may have been over-enthusiastic in our observations. Meaning? Several of our most eager researchers needed to be reminded that checking the roots every hour would not accelerate growth. Maya laughed. "Welcome to lesson 1 of patience. Plants grow at their own pace, no matter how advanced the civilization watching them." A new Vexari materialized nearby. A medical researcher Maya had worked with the previous day. Its form pulsed with excited patterns. "Maya Cultivator," it announced, using the title the Vexari had created for her. "We have preliminary results from the nutrient analysis of naturally grown produce versus our synthetic nutrition." The garden grew quiet. Even the other Vexari stopped their scanning and observations, their forms shifting to attentive patterns. This was what they had all been waiting for. The first real test of whether natural agriculture could help their dying children. "The complexity is remarkable," the researcher continued. "The interaction between natural compounds, the presence of trace elements we never thought to include in our synthetic versions. But most importantly, we're seeing adaptive properties. The molecular structures respond to different physiological conditions, adjusting their availability based on the consumer's needs. Living food," Maya said softly. "Food that can still adapt and respond, even after being harvested. That's what your children have been missing." V924 materialized in the garden, its once aggressive form now showing the more measured patterns Maya had come to associate with the administrator's growing understanding. "We have begun preliminary trials," the administrator announced. "A small group of our youngest, those most affected by the synthetic nutrition crisis, they were given naturally grown produce from our ship's test gardens." Maya held her breath. Around her, the Vexari scientists' forms shifted with anticipation. "Their quantum coherence patterns have improved by 12%, V924 said, its form glowing with what could only be joy. "It has been only 3 days, and already we're seeing cellular regeneration we thought impossible." A ripple of color cascaded through the assembled Vexari, their forms shifting through celebrations of light and pattern. Maya felt tears in her eyes, thinking of her master and how she would have loved to see this moment. Earth's ancient agricultural wisdom helping to save an advanced civilization that had lost its way. "But this creates a new challenge," V924 continued, its patterns settling into more serious configurations. "Our population is vast. Our need is immediate. We cannot wait generations to rebuild our natural agricultural systems." Maya walked to the seed storage unit, its temperature-controlled interior humming softly. "Then it's time for the next lesson," she said, entering her access code, about how humans learn to scale up natural processes without losing their essential character. The unit opened, revealing rows upon rows of carefully preserved seeds. Maya pulled out her master's notebook, turning to a section she had been saving for this moment. Detailed plans for large-scale organic farming that maintain the complexity and interconnectedness of natural systems. Your civilization mastered the manipulation of matter, she said, looking at the assembled Vexari. Now it's time to learn the art of cultivating it, not through control but through understanding, through patience, through partnership. The garden seemed to pulse with possibility as Earth's youngest quantum botanist prepared to teach one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations how to remember what it had forgotten. That sometimes the most sophisticated technology is no technology at all, and that wisdom can grow from the simplest of things, a handful of soil, a single seed, and the willingness to learn. 1 year after the Vexari first appeared above Maya's garden, she stood on the observation deck of their ship, watching Earth recede into the distance. The massive vessel, once a symbol of technological dominance, had been partially converted into the galaxy's most sophisticated greenhouse. Through its transparent hull sections, Maya could see row upon row of thriving plants, their quantum signatures pulsing with life that could be detected across light years. The Council has approved the establishment of agricultural academies on all major Vexari worlds, Enx announced, materializing beside her. The scientists' crystalline form had evolved over the past year, incorporating subtle green patterns that reminded Maya of growing things. They will be built according to your specifications, open to the sky, connected to the soil, embracing the chaos that we once feared. Maya smiled, touching the worn leather notebook in her pocket, and the first graduating class of Vexari gardeners. Ready to begin their work, Enx replied, its patterns shifting with pride. Though many of them still struggle with the concept of not checking on their plants every hour. They'll learn, Maya laughed, just like I did, just like every gardener does. The ship's internal transport system hummed to life, carrying them through sections that showcased the marriage of Vexari technology and Earth's agricultural wisdom. Automated systems monitored conditions without interfering, collecting data that would help future gardeners understand their plants better. But the actual growing, the daily tending and care, was all done by hand, or in the Vexari's case, by carefully modulated energy limbs. They arrived at the ship's primary growing chamber, where VA-924 was instructing a group of young Vexari in the art of transplanting seedlings. The administrator's once rigid form had softened over the months, adopting patterns that flowed like leaves in the wind. Gently, VA-924 was saying, demonstrating the proper technique. Feel the quantum resonance between your energy field and the plant's cellular structure. Work with it, not against it. The young Vexari, their forms still developing their adult patterns, carefully lifted their seedlings. Their movements were awkward but full of care, so different from the precise, controlled actions their species had once prized above all else. Your civilization's children, Maya observed, healing as they learned to help things grow. Enx's patterns shifted thoughtfully. We have measured a 38% improvement in quantum coherence across all age groups consuming naturally grown food. But the young ones who actually work in the gardens, their improvement rates are even higher. Because they're reconnecting with something fundamental, Maya said. Something every living thing knows in its core, how to work with life itself. They moved through the chamber, passing rows of earth crops growing alongside newly rediscovered Vexari plant species. The alien plants were strange and beautiful, their quantum signatures unlike anything in Maya's experience. Yet they'd followed the same basic patterns as their Earth counterparts, reaching for light, responding to care, growing in their own time and way. We found these in deep storage, Nyanx explained, gesturing to a section of iridescent vegetation. Seeds preserved from before our civilization's shift to synthetic nutrition. Our scientists thought them worthless, too chaotic to be properly controlled. Now they're your future, Maya finished. A bridge between what your people were and what they can become. A soft chime echoed through the chamber, the ship's way of announcing they were approaching their destination. Through the transparent hull, a new world came into view. Vexor Prime, the heart of the civilization that had nearly engineered itself into extinction. "Are you certain about this?" Enx asked, its patterns showing concern. "Accepting the position of Chief Agricultural Advisor, it's an enormous responsibility." Maya touched a nearby tomato plant, a descendant of that first seed she planted with Enix, now part of a new generation that would help seed gardens across the Vexori worlds. "Someone needs to help your people remember how to work with nature instead of trying to control it. Besides," she grinned, "I've always wanted to grow things on another planet." The ship descended through layers of artificial atmosphere, its hull rippling with new patterns that seemed to echo the excitement of its occupants. Below, Maya could see the first of the new agricultural academies, massive structures that combined Earth's open-air garden design with Vexari environmental controls. Already, thousands of her new students awaited, eager to learn the art of quantum cultivation. "Your master," Van 924 said, joining them at the viewport, "would be proud of what her knowledge has achieved." Maya pulled out the notebook, its pages now filled with additional notes documenting this unprecedented collaboration between species. She always said that a garden is more than just a place to grow food. It's a place to grow understanding, to grow hope. She looked out at the Vexari world, imagining it transformed by patches of green, by the chaos and beauty of living things. I think this is exactly what she would have wanted. As the ship made its final approach, Maya thought about that first morning in her garden, when a desperate civilization came looking for advanced technology and found instead the most advanced technology of all, life itself, in all its messy, beautiful, persistent glory. She thought about how far they'd all come, humans and Vexori alike, learning and growing together. The ship landed softly, its garden sections casting dappled light across the alien soil. Above them, the artificial sky shimmered with quantum energy. Below, the ground awaited its first seeds, and in between, a young human gardener and her alien students prepared to plant a new future, one handful of soil at a time. Maya opened her notebook to a fresh page. At the top, she wrote in careful script, "The first Vexari garden." Then, smiling at her companions, she said the words that had launched 1,000 gardens across human history. "Let's begin."